And with that being said, we need to dive into this.
Heavy pain medication.
Over them not letting them do shows on.
Okay.
So, folks, we're learning different languages today from a very renowned heart surgeon who somehow decided to change. Can you imagine you're a heart surgeon, okay? That's what you're doing for a living, okay? And then all of a sudden, one day, you're inspired to want to be a comedian, okay? Because you watch a guy named Jon Stewart, which we talked about yesterday. Mm-hmm. He just recently chose to part ways with Apple over them not letting them do shows on China. AI in China. And so, I can just visualize you as a heart surgeon. In the middle of a heart surgery, he's telling all the...
God, Jon Stewart, I hope he lands somewhere less restrictive than Apple. My goodness.
Nurses jokes and this one we messed up.
Oops.
This one's gone. It's not going to work.
You don't need this. You know what? It's just your heart.
I want to be a comedian. So, heart surgeon, you would assume you're doing well for yourself. You're making money. You got respect. You've gone to school. Then you take the risk to go be a comedian. And you don't just become a regular comedian. A third of your country is listening to you. You got 40 million, give or take, weekly listeners to your show. And then you're being invited all over the place. And then recently, some of you may recognize him because of the podcast or the show that he did with Piers Morgan, which the angle he took was very different, satire, comedy. It almost confused Piers. It was so confusing that Piers had to get on a plane to go to L.A. at the comedy club to interview him. It was a great encounter back and forth.
Yep. Yeah, he
gave a different perspective.
He was such a good heart surgeon. He took his own heart out and put it into comedy.
To everybody. But today, we have in the flesh, Bassem, Youssef. How are you, sir?
Hello. From the other side. Can you hear it? I'm a little bit under the influence.
Yeah.
And the influence meaning that I'm still under heavy pain medication.
How long did you've been traveling? 48 hours.
So just in 5 days.
5 days.
In 5 days. I took the plane from LA.
Yeah.
To Dubai for 48 hours. And then I went from Dubai to Boston for 36 hours for another shows in Arabic and Kenyan. Then went from Boston to Dubai again.
This
for
is
another
very
my God.
And then that was less than 24 hours. And then I took the flight from Dubai to Miami. I just landed yesterday.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
And then you're performing.
And I'm performing tonight.
Tonight and tomorrow.
And after tomorrow.
And after tomorrow.
Yeah, Friday, Saturday, Sunday at the Miami Improv.
Wait, so the Jon Stewart to Chud comedian pipeline exists? No, this guy is incredibly based. Bassem Youssef is amazing. Patrick Bet-David is a chud. He sucks ass. He's basically a conservative guy who got rich off of like a multi-level marketing scheme for insurance, and then decided he was going to put a bunch of his money into becoming a podcast host, and like talking about politics, and that's what he's done. Basically, in a nutshell, he's a extraordinarily conservative, very bigoted podcast host, and he got to the size he is by flexing his wealth.
So you're fired up, is what you're saying.
I am so excited, but I cannot hide it.
Yeah, it's very.
I'm just kidding.
So I got a question for you. I mean, seriously, like before we got a lot of things we're going to get into. I want your thoughts on a lot of different stories, and whether it's some current events, your background, politics. We'll talk Israel. We'll talk Palestine. We'll talk Egypt. We'll talk all that stuff. What was the turning point for you? Like, did people always know you were funny? Like when I talk to a comedian, I'll say, at what point did you know you were funny? Well, when I was 10 years old, my dad would tell me, hey, go out there and perform and make everybody laugh. And all my dad's friends, like Vinny, my dad's friends would watch me, and I'm like, oh my God, this kid's so funny. Oh, when I was, our life was so hard, and it was all about, comedy was kind of lower the temperature for me, where I could use it, and with laughter and all this stuff. If you're a surgeon, you went to school 10 to 12 years to be a surgeon, right? So at what point did you know you were funny and you may want to consider a career in comedy?
I never thought that I was funnier than usual. There was actually people in my school that were funnier. They're the one who are much cooler with the girls. I never had a girlfriend, so I was like an okay guy.
You never had a girlfriend?
I never had a girlfriend.
With those eyes, you never
Yeah.
had a girlfriend.
Never, because I couldn't know how to speak to women. So when I finished my primary school, the elementary school, my parents took me into a much richer school, much more expensive school, and my parents were university professors and judges, so they were government employees. So they can kind of scrapped in order to push me to that. So that was the best school in town, which is great. But the problem is you end up with all of the rich kids. So you feel that you're less, you feel you're not like that. So people didn't mind me. They were not mean to me or anything, but I wasn't boyfriend material. I played sports very well, and I was a nerd. So I was like a typical nerd who like glasses and nobody wants to talk to him. But I wasn't cool. I was one of the cool kids with all of the experiences and the money. And then when I finished,
His eyes are very pretty. This is
school,
true.
I went to
Also,
medical
hello,
school.
tipster.
Now,
How you doing?
Medical school there are Arab, not Arabs, government. So everybody from all over the country comes in. All of the people who go to the free schools, and these
Jane.
people are
Hello,
they're
Foxy
like
Cheshire.
nerds, big time nerds. So I come in. I am from the rich school. Now I am I'm the soft kid from the kids' school.
Yeah. You're not the elite.
Yeah. So now I'm the elite, and then I always felt that I'm out of place. I never felt that I belonged to anybody. And whether or not you're funny or not, well, there's other doctors who are funny. People make fun in the operating room, but the fact that actually you do a show, that was not even there. So it just took me like 3-4 YouTube videos that I produced it, put it online, didn't think about it at all, and it just like blew up.
Wait, but you have to know, like, before you've had glimpses of you make people laugh and get a reaction. No, like, you know how a girl knows she's beautiful. I don't know what it is to be a beautiful girl, but I would assume this girl at 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 years old, she's like, why are grown men checking me out? Why is it that they look at me the way they do? Or a man that all of a sudden you see how a woman...
Oh, that was really gross. That was really gross, right? Yeah, you guys caught that. Forlorn, I see that you caught it. Just real quick. Just real quick here.
16, 17, 18, 19, 20 years old, she's a beautiful girl. But I would assume this, you know how a girl knows she's beautiful. I don't know what it is to be a beautiful girl, but I would assume this girl at 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 years old, she's like, why are grown men checking me out? Why is it that they look at me the way they do? Or a man that all of a sudden you see how a woman looks at you, you're like, you can read a lot when you see someone's eyes, right?
Like, oh man, why so young? Well, okay, you guys ready for like a piece of knowledge that you guys maybe aren't ready for? Depends. A lot of men sexualize underage girls. Like, that's actually an incredibly normalized thing in our society. Excuse me? Yeah. It's horrific. Like, I know people personally who had to go through the period of their life from like age 12 to age 22 with like men ogling and like attempting to like sexually assault them, or like, it ranges from just like propositioning them from cars to like all the way to like attempting actual sexual assault, right? And like literally from like 12 years old all the way until like that's the desirable age range, like 12 to like 18 for a lot of men. And like, if you're a man and you're watching this and you don't believe me, talk to some of your women friends if you have any. Talk to like, your girlfriend, your partner. It happens so often, it is ridiculous. And it's really, really gross. Like, there is like a rampant fetishization of youth in our country, and that extends to like way, way, way too young. And if you don't yeah, exactly. If you don't have women as friends, maybe you should look into getting some women who are your friends. My wife said before she met me, she was talking with some friends at the gas station, and some guys pulled up, rolled down their windows and asked her, how much you want for one night? She flipped them off. Yeah. Also, and I'm gonna keep it 100 with you guys. There is also like a difference between how a lot of men do like talk with certain women, depending on like that woman's like skin color, for example. Like some men will just be like, okay, how much for a night? Like that. How much do I have to pay you to suck my dick? And to like, oh, I would like to ask you out on a date, But again, keep in mind both of these behaviors are being targeted towards often like underage kids. Also, it can be dangerous to be rude to men. Yep. I'm a gay man, and it isn't just a straight thing either, unfortunately. It really is men, though, for some reason. I was 13 with 40 to 50-year-old dudes constantly flirting because I lived in a cruising area. Yeah. Like when I first came out about transitioning, there were people who would message me asking if I was under 18. Like, it was really weird. Back when I was doing like nudes on Tumblr, like there were dudes who like thought that it would be really, really hot if I was like secretly underage or something. I wasn't, obviously. I was like 25. It's incredibly common. They want that. Yeah. It's a very normalized thing. And there are a lot of like cultural reasons and influences around it. But like think of how normalized it has to be for this conservative podcast host to be talking about how like women realize they're beautiful when they're 16. That's not a woman. That's a child. Like, it's so normalized, he can say it on his podcast, and no one bats an eye. It's kind of like how prison rape is so normalized, you can literally find prison rape jokes in like children's cartoons, Like it's so normalized, you can find like references to like don't drop the soap in like Shrek movies. Yeah, there's literally a prison rape jokes in SpongeBob. He stopped at 20. Yeah, right? So like we have a bunch of extremely normalized stuff that is incredibly sussy in our society. And it's good to be aware of it, because by being aware of it, we can suddenly we can start being the people in like our friend groups or like in the world who are like, whoa, that's really gross, dude. That's really fucking gross. And I think the more of us that do that, the more people will not be like, drawn towards sexualizing 16-year-olds. Right, Salmon Moose? All right. Yeah, it's time some of the locker room talk started getting some pushback.
You never had a glimpse of people watching you and saying this guy's super funny and likable?
I had people think that I'm funny, and people think that I'm not. It's just like I was not out
wild.
Of the range. Like
I thought this guy was supposed to be a funny guy, Pat. I'm out of here.
No. For me, what I mean by this is wild is when the camera's on and you're performing. Like, you've been doing this your entire life. You've been making people.
To bolster my point, there was Reddit, actually. Reddit had for a long time one of its most popular subreddits was called Jailbait. Literally for pictures of what could pass for children being shared around by people really turned on by the idea of sexualized kids. That was the most popular subreddit. It's a insidiously normalized idea. Now, the CEO of Reddit used to moderate that sub, dude. That was a honeypot? No, it was not. Some people might have used it to honeypot, but it was overall very seriously used.
People laugh and think and satire. You've been doing that for a long time. Your show was on for what, 3 years?
3.5 years.
3.5 years, and it was the top show.
Yeah.
Everybody's watching it. Everybody, you're.
But it wasn't because of me. The whole idea that I just chose a different direction to make it funny, but also deep. So the people that the crazy jokes, I wouldn't write that. I wouldn't be writing that crazy jokes. It's about the direction and how to utilize these jokes and utilize the direction. So a lot of people come to me like, jokes, ha. I said and I will tell them these jokes are not taking us anyway. You're just like, these are circular jokes. My style was, how can we use the jokes in order to advance what we want to say? So me, I was kind of like the older guy. And by that time, I was older. I was 37. All of the kids were like 24. So they were all about like the zingers and the punchline. And it's like, yes, we're going to use that, but in what context? So for me, it's more of like, I'm the manager. I'm telling them like, we need to have the comedy. We need to have it because there was other political satire show, but they all failed because they were all about like the cheap laughs, the quick laughs. For
It was
me,
shticks versus storytelling.
yeah. For me, it was like all about like storytelling, about like a beginning and a middle and an end of what that segment. What will it be like? How the people would leave feeling about that. So that was me.
Interesting.
But as a kind of like haha comedy, hilarious. I was not the best one.
When you were on Pierce, did you write what you were going to say, or you just kind of said it? You didn't know what you were going to say.
No, I'm a nerd. I write everything.
So when you went on Pierce, you were prepared on what you were going to tell Pierce. Got it. Okay, now this makes sense.
Chart. Yeah, he had a chart.
No. But the liner. I'm not talking about the chart.
The whole thing about the Homelander.
Did you prepare? Yeah, of course he prepared to go on the show. He wasn't preparing like comedy bits to go on the show, but he prepared like informationally to know what he's talking about. God. Patrick Bet-David is just a terrible human being.
That's what I'm saying.
About the narcissistic psychopath, all of that was planned.
All of that was planned. Okay, now this makes sense. So you're a preparer, is what you would say.
Okay.
You're an over preparation type.
Okay, no, he did prep his lines. Okay, then I don't know. Some comedians are really good at like improvising. I didn't know if he was like I guess I assumed he was like an improv type comedian in that respect. Like he's just really good with his language, but if he prepped his jokes ahead of a time, more power to him for having the ability to foresee what might be useful in a debate with peers,
Okay.
Yeah, and the whole thing when I told him like, so how does Israel think that will go on? It's like, well, in order to intimidate the people and make some sort of, well, you just compared Israel to ISIS. So all of these traps, it was prepared.
And what year did you make this transition from the medical field to comedy?
That was 2011.
2011.
2011, I was, at that time, I was an attending doctor. I had my master's, I had my MDs, and I passed my USMLE exams, and I already applied to a fellowship in Cleveland. And I was waiting for it, and as I was waiting, the Arab Spring happened. So I made these videos, and I thought, like, maybe I'll put these videos like online or something, and after 1 year, somebody will discover me and get me as a writer on a television show like that. So in 2 weeks it went viral, and then by 3 weeks I'm just getting television offers.
Who called you? Who called you first?
Everybody, Al Jazeera, Al Hayat, CBC, on TV, all of these, like the local channels, and then some of the regional channels starting to call, and then we end up with a smaller television show. They didn't give us the biggest amount of money, but they gave us a little bit of freedom. And then after one episode, we started to wanted to do with live audience. And I did that because I visited the Jon Stewart offices to shadow his team, and I wasn't asking for more, just one selfie with John. But then he came in, it's like, oh, I know about you. Would you like to come on the show? It's like, yes. So he invited me on the show. And then we made a promise. It's like, do you promise me to come to the show if I made it a live audience show? He said, I promise. A year later, he came to my show.
That is so cool.
What year was that you went to see Jon Stewart?
I went to see him 2011, and 2012
Okay.
he came to my show.
So 2011, I'm just trying to understand your
So
background.
2012, and then 2013 he came.
So 2011, the Arab Spring's going on in 2005, 2006. It's going on in Egypt.
The Arab Spring started 2011.
Oh, there wasn't. Okay, wasn't there an earlier? Okay,
No, that's
so
right.
back to Egypt. You had El Sisi. Now you had Mubarak. You had Morsi. There are all upheavals going on.
No, let
in
me
your
let
country.
me let me give you. So before 2011, Mubarak was there. Mubarak was there for 30 years.
Yeah.
And when I joke about this, like I was like, oh my God, you had a president for 30 years, and I say in the Middle East that's a very short
The first term.
term.
Yeah.
And then so Mubarak didn't survive 2011. He was taken over by the army, and then they did elections. Muslim Brotherhood won the elections. So now it's like an Islamist kind of it's an Islamist authority. So when someone is on authority, you make fun of them. So of course the Islamists who used to like me now said like, oh, you're doing this because you hate Islam. You're an Islamophobe. We have that things too.
You guys have Islamophobe?
Yeah, if you make listen, words like Islamophobe, transphobe, racist, anti-Semite, whatever, all of this is used in order to shut down conversation. So instead of actually trying to have you, like, if I say something about Islam or about Islam, political Islam, you can discuss, like, discuss the thing or whatever is happening with Israel, so what's happening, or you can just shut it down. Oh, you're anti-Semite.
That's
you're
right.
Islamophobe.
Yeah.
And that is like a very simplistic and
Conversation killer.
yeah.
Back to what I was asking. So you meet Jon Stewart. They say that luck is when preparation meets opportunity, right? Like you're studying to be a medical doctor, but obviously you're politically savvy. You know what's going on, socioeconomic. You understand Islam. You meet this Jewish guy, Jon Stewart. We just saw you do the Mark Twain Award, where you sarcastically, poured love out to him. It was a great speech. Describe that relationship. He's a Jewish guy, massive in media. In 2011, 2012, Obama's president. He's still doing the Daily Show. He retires in 2016, right before Trump comes in. Best time for him to probably be there. We all saw what happened on the Daily Show with Trevor Noah. Now he's off. Describe that relationship. What did he do for you? What did you try to mirror with Jon Stewart? The good, the bad, the ugly. He's Jewish. You're Muslim. Just give us a little background.
So I was watching Jon Stewart since 2000.
I feel like if you're a conservative and you're watching this, right? Like, it takes a special kind of brain to be like, well, he's a Jew and you're a Muslim. How could you possibly be friends? It's like, what? You can be friends with people who are a different religion than you. It happens all the time. Like, this isn't that hard or difficult. Also, folks, we've been going for about 3 hours now. If you would like to support the show, please hit the follow button, hit the subscribe button on YouTube, hit the like button on the YouTube stream, and consider dropping some subs or donos. We are inching closer towards having an analog horror breakdown, so consider helping us get there. I would very much appreciate it. And with that, let's move on, baby.
2003, 2004. We at that time we used to watch it on YouTube, and the first time I saw him, I didn't understand what was he saying. So in order to understand, I had to educate myself about Republicans and about Democrats and about. Because it seems to be very funny, but I didn't understand the political context. So for me, Jon Stewart became the source of American politics, and I was fascinated how people can make fun of politics that good. So I had this dream of mine for 8 years that I would have a certain show like this in Egypt. So I would even like write certain like drafts of television shows and make up the. But
Good night, Dark Star Mike.
But I kind of like left it. Like, we're living under a dictatorship. There's no way this is going to happen. And then when 2011 happened and the show exploded, the foreign press started to come and see those people in Egypt, all of those people in the political activists, the revolution, and then, of course, they came and talked to me. And the first English speaking publication was the Daily Beast. Mm-hmm. And on that day,
oh yeah, Patrick Bet-David records his podcast in a bank vault, like an actual bank vault, and then they have their guests sign the bank vault doors.
I decided to plug Jon Stewart
in
every single way possible. So they would say, "What's your inspiration?" Jon Stewart. What do you eat 3 times a day? Jon Stewart. Who do you dream of being? Jon Stewart. So it worked.
Who's Bassem Youssef? Bassem Youssef is a very, very good left-leaning comedian from Egypt, and he's incredibly good at dismantling anti-Palestinian narratives with his comedy. He allows his comedy is like designed specifically to break through the idea that like Palestinians are animals and like humanize Palestinians while admonishing like those who would seek to strip them of their humanity.
Headline of that article was Bassem Youssef, the Jon Stewart of the Nile. And since then it caught up. So my name and Jon Stewart became synonymous.
That's great.
And that was for me important, so they would know I was outside. So by the time that I asked to shadow his team already knows about me. He already knew about me. Mm-hmm. So when I went in, all I wanted to have like a selfie with him and just shadow his team. But he saw me. He's like, "Hey, dude, how are you? Let's go to my office." We sat in his office. I thought we sat for 5 days. We sat there talking for an hour and a half.
Bassem, so that relationship's built, and you're looking at his style, you're like, well, I'm going to do the same model here, right? But in America, you can get away making fun of presidents and political powers and all this stuff, and you're the first satire TV show in the Middle East type of thing. This is not a business model in the Middle East. It's not like, hey, I'm going to go be the first this. Yeah, there's a reason why there's not this in the Middle East, right? Because they don't. When was it when you pushed the envelope with a joke or something you guys said where you got a knock and you're like, hey, man, all this stuff is fine, but you're kind of like increasing the temperature, and this joke is not going to fly here.
It was with every single episode.
Every single episode.
Because there was political satire in the Arab world before I did it, but it was a kind of satire that avoids the obvious. We don't talk about the president, we talk about the minister. Don't talk about the prime minister, we talk about like the low life employees. Here, like when the president went out, I would just like mock him. And that was something unprecedented. So when the Muslim Brotherhood came to power, they were not very popular by many people. They still have like a huge base. So I started making fun of them. And for a lot of the people, it's like, yeah, like those Islamists, yeah, they may have to be making fun. But the Islamists were very angry. Now, when the Islamists were removed by the army, that was the challenge. Because the army is untouchable. The army is much more sacred than religion. Oh. So I started kind of like trading around it, and that was enough for me to get canceled once and twice. I got interrogated and arrested under a Muslim Brotherhood, and I got canceled twice, and I had my signal jammed a couple of times under the army. And I was going to jail under the army, and then last minute I left in November 2014.
Did anybody know you were leaving or no?
What?
Did people know you were leaving?
No, well, they came up with a verdict, fining me 150 million pounds, which is about $15 million at the time, for legal issues with my channels. Of course, they will choose other kind of. They're not going to say because of freedom of speech. So my lawyer said, like, you need to leave of the country right now. So the verdict was at 12 noon, 4 o'clock. I was out.
This is November 11, 2014.
Yeah.
And when you left, you're leaving. How are you leaving? Like underground leaving,
No.
or you just went straight to the airport, booked a flight?
But they didn't put. They didn't have time to put my name on the list.
Wow.
Yeah.
So from that point, so right now, Bassem, like right now, are they, like if you went back, would you be flagged? Would they be like, hey, he's back?
I don't think so. I have an American passport now, and they're trying to be nice to me.
Oh
And I
yeah,
don't
no,
care.
that like
They
to understand how like based this guy is. He ran a leftist comedy show in Egypt during like a military dictatorship, and literally like was doing his show in the face of like possible execution by the state. Like they called him in, I think not just one time but multiple times for like questioning to like try and get him on charges, you know.
and they sent a lot of people to kind of, it's just, you don't, with authoritarian regimes like this, you don't know, because one day somebody from them said, hey, it's your country, you need to come back. And the next day I land in Jordan on the way to Paris, and I get detained to be delivered for the Egyptian. And you don't know who you're talking to. Like one day they tell you, oh, there's nothing wrong with Bassem, he can come any day. And the next day they send me hecklers in my shows in New York to spoil my show.
This is when?
2014, 2015, 2016.
How long did that last?
It did that like 4 or 5 times. And then then the New Yorker wrote about that. It's actually, you can find it in the New Yorker, called The Heckling of the Jon Stewart of Egypt. I'm happy that they have a cartoon of me on the New Yorker. So it's called The Heckling of the Jon Stewart of Egypt. And the reporter there attended it, and he actually described how, here it is, how the people of the pro-military people were in Washington and New York were heckling me, and they were shouting at me, and even one of them went up and sang the Egyptian national anthem in the middle of my comedy show. So it's crazy. Like one day you're fine. You're our son. He's Egyptian. You can come back to your country, and then the next day you do that.
Wow.
Who wants you to shut up? Who wants to keep you silent? You see what happens with Salman Rushdie. There's a fatwa on him. I'm not saying that's the case here, but clearly there's people that are like, shut your mouth. Who wants you to keep you silent the most?
In any regime, you will have the doves and the hawks. There's always the people. No, every fine thing is fine. It's like, no, these should die. In every single regime, there's always like that. So I think like the nicer people want me back, and the kind of like the vicious ones want me dead.
But the Egyptian regime under El-Sisi specifically.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you'll find that in any regime, not just Sisi. If it was an Islamic regime, you'll find doves and vultures. Same. But it seems that the doves always try to get me back, and the vultures want to.
But at the end of the day, the hawks, or the vultures as you call them, they're going to be the resounding voice in these regimes.
Bassem, Bassem, you come here. You're in the States. You're doing stand-up. You're doing your thing. Are you immediately getting a show signed, working, making money? And
No, it was terrible. I came here in 3-4 years of darkness.
Yeah, that's what I'm.
I tried to do little gigs here and there, and I was not making it. It was terrible. And the problem is when you're trying to do something here, you already have the massive following that followed me in the Middle East, and then they come and see me doing little things, because I cannot come here and just like hit the floor running. And one of it is did like some YouTube sketches. I did some stand up, and I sucked because that I needed to learn something in my second language, and I was not good. Like anybody who's starting anything new, and they would come to my show, and I can see the disappointment in their eyes, and I can very disappointed, and I would like go back for very long crying nights, saying I'm done, I'm a has-been. And it took me some while.
Are you married at the time? Like when you came here married?
I'm married all through, yeah.
Okay, got it. And while you're going through this, have you made already millions on top of millions of dollars that you've saved so you don't have to make money ever again? Like, because you're living in New York. It's very expensive to live in New York.
No, I live in Los Angeles.
Okay. At the time, you didn't come to New York. You went straight to LA.
No, I went to Dubai for a few months, stayed with people who helped me, and then I went to northern San Francisco, in Oakland. I stayed with people, and then I moved to a very small apartment in Los Angeles.
You don't have money at this time.
I do, but they were like dwindling. They were like, because a lot of stuff that I couldn't get out of Egypt. So financially, I wasn't doing very well, and I was just like doing gigs, like speaking in universities or whatever. But I said I cannot go to university, speak to say the same thing all over and over again. So I started to do my own act. So I started doing stand-up comedy, and at the first 2 years, it was terrible. So the little money I had, I went to hire comedians so they can see me perform. I didn't hire them to write me jokes because I knew what kind of story I would tell. But I want them to kind of punch up my style. It's not also about the writing.
Mm-hmm.
It's about the cadence and the rhythm and the speed and the delivery,
Good
which is
night on
different from
the
one language to the other. So I had to learn that in a language that's not
Yeah, no,
mine.
they only care about the money,
So
guys.
you can say it's not like getting like an Arabic joke and you translate it into English. So I had to kind of rewire my brain, and it was terrible as I said in the beginning. And only 2 years ago it became better, and my English stand-up comedy has actually been touring and filling like theaters and comedy clubs. So it's been going well. And so when the Piers Morgan came, it seems that it came in the right time, because if the Piers Morgan thing came like two years ago, I wouldn't have been ready. People who come and see, they will see like a bad show. But now they come to see someone, oh, he's actually like a good comedian, whether in English and in Arabic. So I think the timing was perfect.
And there's not that many people, Bassem, that can do like both language stand-up comedy. So you're doing an hour.
Yeah, the Arabic show is a little
wonder
bit
here,
longer,
does it
an hour and a
have
half.
the,
English show is an hour.
Oh, it does.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
we've been doing now very new experiences. So just the improv in Irvine, I did a whole weekend in Arabic. And that's the first time ever like
That's cool.
a franchise comedy club will actually host something that's not in English. Here in
Okay, so looks like probably around the 26-minute mark, Bassem is gonna transition this into talking about Israel, because he's gonna be talking about why he won't perform in Israel. So far this has been relatively civil. I think it's quickly going to become not that civil in about 2 minutes. So, I think he's being actually very honest and vulnerable about his position as a comedian, trying to do comedy in his second language as opposed to his native language, you know? Like, doing comedy is really, really hard, even if you already know how to use the full language that you're using, you know? And he had to learn an entirely new language and learn how to do comedy in it, which is very, very, very hard. So I don't think he's underselling it or underselling himself. I think he's just accurately portraying that it is incredibly difficult to do comedy in a language you are, less than ideal in.
Miami, I'm doing two Arabics and 3 English in the same weekend.
That's awesome.
So the fact that you bring in another language to the comedy
Hey, a
club,
symbolic
not just that
symbol.
you
How
bring
you
in
doing?
other
Haven't seen you in a
audiences to
hot
come
minute.
see
That's right.
in Arabic.
Hope you're doing all right.
What they love about the other comedy clubs, they say you bring people that we never see. Because Arabs is not part of their culture to come and stand-up comedy show. They go out to eat, the movies, cinemas, malls. To come in and get seated and listen to
LG,
comedy,
no.
someone speaking to them like that.
Yeah.
That's very new.
And I'm pretty sure, because we're Middle Eastern, I can only imagine, because that rarely happens, an Arabic guy coming to do stand-up comedy. Imagine the audience, but imagine the response of people like, hey, where are all these damn brown people coming from?
Yeah.
People must be shocked.
The what? I'm sorry. Can you repeat that real quick?
Shocked, like who the hell are all these
But you know, there's an element to that
coming from? But imagine the response of people like, hey, where are all these damn brown people coming from?
Yeah.
People must be shocked, like who the hell are all these?
But you know, there's an element to that happening.
You called it though about it not being very chill very soon. Here we go. I mean, like these people are objectively awful. Bassem Youssef is has the patience of a saint, so he knows it's not time to go hard on what this guy just said, but like that was extremely mask off.
But in golf, right? Tiger started playing
yeah,
golf.
exactly.
You know, everybody's like, hey, you know, I'm interested. You know, I thought it was only a white man's sport. No, I want to play the game.
Yep.
And you bring, you know, some of that happens a little. Like when I went to Maz's show, Maz had a bunch of, you know,
Iranians.
Persians, you
Yep.
know, even Tehran. Tehran is an interesting character,
Yeah.
right? The black Persian guy
Black
getting up
and
there and funny as hell.
Yeah.
You know, first time I saw Tehran perform was, man, probably over a decade ago.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, let me guess, you look like an
The Legend of Sean, the PBD guys, look like the dudes that would ask my coworkers for happy endings. Jesus. I mean, like, I can't say that you're wrong because they fit, they honestly, they fit like all of the demographical profiles you could have for like a dude who would ask for that in a massage parlor. But like, yeah. Also, Legend of Sean, thank you for resubscribing and for being subscribed for 18 months. My God. Actual warrior shit over here. Thank you for getting us another sub closer to our analog horror extravaganza. Also, folks who've been going for 3.5 hours, consider dropping some subs or donos because it helps me to not die. These are guys who think money lets you do anything. Yeah. These are dudes who like scream at someone because they think paying them means that they own them.
Iranian finance guy that drives a 750 BMW. I'm sitting next to Jen. I'm like, oh shit, I came with the BMW today, 750.
Bingo.
Yeah, so you know, it's great to see that. It's great to see what's happening now. The fact that the timing of it, of when it took off, where you actually are able to also deliver on the performance side. Let's talk about
actually me and Mazen.
You
Tahan
are Legend
going
of Sean, so thank you
together
very,
to
very
Dubai,
much.
May 24th.
Oh,
A
fantastic.
big double bill.
Fantastic.
And
Yeah,
Dubai is the one of the few countries in the Middle East where you can just say what you want to say
There's
without the fear of getting your head chopped off.
No, you can. You know, you have Dubai, you have Bahrain, you have Kuwait, you have
The Gulf states.
Lebanon, you have
Yeah, Lebanon too.
Lebanon, Jordan. I played on all of these.
But not Egypt.
Not me. It's actually like Russell Peters was just in Egypt. So
Was he? Are there any Middle Eastern countries you just would not feel safe going, or just completely uncomfortable going there telling jokes? What countries?
for now, for me, Egypt.
Straight up. Like, would you go to Afghanistan? Would you go to Iraq? Would you go to Syria?
Afghanistan, no. Syria, no. Iraq, no.
No. Would you ever perform in Israel?
No,
You would not.
no.
Why? They would accept you.
I don't accept them.
You don't accept Israel, the state of Israel.
No, I don't accept them taking care of me getting in. That's no problem. The problem is when you go in Israel, it's not about going in Israel or not. It's that the fact that they really show you a terrible time. You go in the security, they treat you like shit.
really?
Yeah, I mean, I've been invited by Palestinians a lot to go to there. And so, like, I would go to you, but, like, I don't want to deal with the border control of Israel. It's just because they humiliate you. They treat
And
you
that's
like-
because you're Arab, or that's
Yeah.
because.
because they're mad.
But they have 20% of their population is Arab. They're not leaving.
Yeah, but they're treating them like shit.
Not according to them. I've seen them. I've met them.
I met them too. I mean, they don't have, like, you talking about the 20% of Palestinians?
I'm talking about
The
the
Arab
20% of Israelis are Muslims, are Arabs.
Yeah.
If given a choice to move to any other Middle Eastern country, given the state of circumstances of the Middle East, they would choose 100 times out of 100.
Yeah, this is where I think things are gonna take a turn here.
to stay in the democracy of Israel?
Have
Why don't they leave?
Have you talked to them about their healthcare and their schools? Because they're about like 25 Arab cities that they don't have hospitals or schools. They have to take.
In Gaza or in the West Bank?
No, I'm talking about inside Israel. I'm talking about
Hey,
Arabs
Indiana.
with Israeli passports, fully fledged Israeli citizens. They don't have a single cinema. They don't have a single hospital. They don't have a single school in their cities, and they have to go to the Jewish states in order to go there. There are many, 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 many daily microaggressions against the Arabs who live in Israel.
He's completely correct, by the way. Like the way that Arab citizens of Israel get treated is very much like second class citizen, like maybe like a hair's breadth away from not quite having whites only fountains, but the fountains are only being built in a certain side of town, and it's the side of town that doesn't have Arab people in it. Like that, there is the disproportionate investing in different communities and different infrastructure is absolutely off the charts. This man's voice is very ASMR. Yeah, I think I think he had to have like a minor surgery or something, so like he's not exactly on his A game. I think, like you mentioned, taking painkillers earlier, so he's not like 100% on point, but like dude's gonna be spitting some truth here. Did you cover Sam Cedar on the show? I did. I don't know if that ever made it up on YouTube though.
Having the Israeli passport, even within the Israeli community, you have slurs like Arabi Malukhlakh, which actually that's the N word. They're, I mean, I can go on and on and on about
But slurs are going to be everywhere. In America, where
Yeah,
we're
but-
all equal, there's slurs.
Yeah,
Every day I get called a dirty Jew. You think I'm crying?
no, but like every day here, if you find someone's like nigger, that would
Yeah,
be not
like
yeah,
basically 200 years of America.
exactly. But like when you have like a one part of them is much more stronger, and actually control the other one, and all they do is like slurs because the Arabs cannot do slurs against the Jews.
So why don't they leave?
Well, some of them actually.
I love that his response was just like, yeah, but we got slurs in America though, but it's like, yeah, but it's the slurs mixed together with like systemic legislative oppression and like like economic oppression as well. Like it's not just the slurs, it's like what those slurs represent, how those slurs convey different power and like differences in like the prioritization of civil rights, you know, like that's what matters in this case, right? And he's just kind of glossing over that. It's just words, sticks and stones, bro. Sticks and stones.
Because it is basically between like a shock and a hard place. Yeah, the whole idea about like Arabs living a wonderful life, they're living good life compared to other Arabic countries, which is a really low bar. And the fact that like can use like a low bar to sell, and at least they're happy now. It's like I'm living here because I don't know where else to go.
I appreciate you saying that because the bar in many Middle Eastern countries is very low.
I'm not coming here to defend any countries.
I know you're not. I'm asking what countries you would go on tour.
I'm just saying that the security and the equality that Israel wants you to think that they have it between all of their Arabs, it is not true. They have something called zoning committees where you as an Arab coming in to get an auction, to get a house in a Jewish town, you will not be allowed to take it. And it happened more and more and more ago.
And what he's referring to here is that basically, in order to facilitate the Jewish right to return within Israel, priority for housing is given to Jewish citizens within Israel. So if you're like an Arab and you're trying to get housing, well, you have to wait at the back of the line, and you're probably not going to make it up to the front of the line in order to get that house that you've been looking at, you know? It's being prioritized for other people who are not you demographically.
before. It happened in Nazarit Elite. It happened in many cities that I actually talked about. There was like an auction where they found that most of the people who are getting the houses were Arabs, and the city canceled the auctions. And they canceled the auction saying that we want to preserve the city of Tarshiha as a Jewish, Zionist, secular country. So I don't know how Zionist and secular and would go and
Yeah,
Zionist.
no, what he's talking about here, I think we covered this story, unless he's giving a different example, and the story I'm remembering is a very, very similar story. But basically, they noticed that some Arabs were being able to buy houses, so they shut down the auction program that allows people to get cheap, affordable housing, in order to preserve the Jewish character of the neighborhood. You know, like, again, this is indistinguishable from like Jim Crow housing provisions. Like, oh, we shut down the sale of these houses because, you know, we wanted to preserve the white character of the neighborhood. You know, like there's no daylight between these two things.
And it's coming the same.
Wait, so literally any Jewish person from anywhere in the world can jump them in line? Basically, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
It's interesting too what question you're asking, right? Because like I'll sit there and if you want to read this real quick, I'll sit there and I'll talk to my friends in California and I'll say, hey, you know, California, this, I hate California. I hate this. I hate that. I hate this. And he was like, oh, why don't you leave? I can't leave California. Why can't you leave California? Well, because my family's here, my unit's here, my kids are here, my uncle, my aunt, my grandma, da-da-da-da-da.
Hey, you have family ties there because you're not a monster.
But I hate it here. I wish I was living in Texas or I was living in Florida, whatever, okay. Some people here, I can't believe, you know, da-da-da. Okay, why don't you leave? Well, I can't, you know, this, that. We lived in...
Wait. One of my badass activist friends took on a birthright paid month trip to Israel, then went on to protest for Palestinian rights. That's based because those birthright trips are basically designed to like brainwash you into moving to Israel, you know? Yeah, you do need to prove that your mother was Jewish. You can't just show up and be like, "Hey, I'm Jewish. I'm one of you guys." Like that won't fly. that won't actually work.
Iran. We left, lived in Tehran for 10 years. And I mean, I went to school there till 5th grade. I read, write, Farsi, everything till I left. And I went to Germany, right? I lived in Germany for a year and a half.
By the way, this is the other thing. He's like, well, why don't they just move? And it's like, well, not everyone can just move to another country. You've got to find like other countries that will allow you to move there. You've got to have the capital to be able to move and to be able to justify like other countries letting you in. Because there's all kinds of crazy immigration laws involved in like moving to a different country. Like in some cases, it can cost you like a couple $1,000s to move just to another country. And that's not including like the cost of like actually getting a place to live there and like, you know, uprooting your entire life and moving there. Like it can be like a $5,000 to $10,000 adventure just to move to a different country. Like he's coming from a place of privilege where he's like, well, why everyone has like $10,000 laying around.
And we finally get here, like holy shit, we make it to America, right? It's like a dream. But the people that it's not the people that can't leave that give the argument of why don't they leave. It's the people that can leave that choose to stay. Why do you choose to stay? Like I'd love to have a room full of 50 people who are Arabs who can choose to leave Israel. Why are you not leaving? Make sense? Just to kind of get an idea. What would you say? Why are you not leaving, right? If you have the ability to leave, you can go to a different place. Why don't you choose?
Why do 2 million people in Gaza being bombed every single day for 100 days? Why don't they leave? Because that's their land. Right? So you can be living in a very shitty situation, but you will not leave because you know that you're not going to get back again. There's those people living in Gaza, 2.2 million people. They're living under subhuman conditions. They could leave. As a matter of fact, everybody pushing them to leave through Sinai. And I said, oh no, we will not leave because this is our land. Sometimes you get connected to the land and doesn't matter how bad. So to answer your question, why don't you leave? Because that's their land.
Yeah, I'm talking about the Arabs in Israel. But
Yeah, because they consider that still their land.
Yeah, that is also that's where they grew up. That's where their family is. Like, I'm sorry if a bunch of assholes showed up at this guy's house, and we're like, hey, leave. You take your entire family and leave. You think he would be like okay with that? He'd be like, okay, I'll leave. Like, no, of course he wouldn't. Of course he wouldn't. This guy would like fantasize about doing a John Wick style execution on the people who came to his house.
Yeah, but there's so many different ways we can have this conversation. But everything for me comes down to socioeconomics. Okay, to me, I'm always wondering why is the Palestinian plight at the forefront of the news? All right, now we're starting to see Yemen in the news. People don't realize for 10 years there's been a civil war with the Houthi rebels, Saudis, Sunnis, Shiites, Iranian-backed militants killing each other. Never in the news. Syria, tens and tens of thousands.
This is true. The Yemeni civil war has been criminally underreported on in Western media, particularly mainstream Western media, largely because reporting on the fact that the United States is supplying Saudi Arabia with arms and ammunition to, like, basically back untold numbers of massacres across Yemen is not a particularly good look when you're trying to facilitate like a peace plan on like in the Middle East that relies on Saudi Arabia becoming an ally, So that combined with like a lot of US interest in the region really pushes the Yemeni civil war into the back of a lot of people's minds or into the back of like media coverage, Al Jazeera is a good source for reporting on Yemen. I wish we could maybe go and look at more of their reporting on Yemen. However, they sent me a copyright strike not that long ago, so we're going to be we're not doing that for a while anyway. Heard Yemen has good coffee. I've also heard that.
Thousands, hundreds of thousands of people murdered. We know what's going on in Iraq, what's going on in Afghanistan. This is not an anomaly in the Middle East. But in my opinion, humbly, with all due respect, what's going on in Gaza is the equivalent of BLM in the States. What do I mean?
Oh my God, dude.
Black on black crime. Every single weekend in Baltimore, in DC, in Chicago, you name the city, there's black on black crime. Let one cop kill a black guy, George Floyd, national, international news. In the Middle East, Yemen, Syria, Lebanon, you name it, Iraq, every day.
Why won't they report on black crime? They one, they do. Two, people commit crimes against people that they live near. That's how crime works, typically. So like when you see like the black on black crime statistics, that's a result of the centuries of prejudice against black people that caused them to be zoned in different areas within large metropolitan areas. This was a practice called redlining, and it was done for like 100 years after from like the abolition of slavery to like the 1970s and into the 80s, and honestly unofficially into the 90s. This is like when you see like but the black on black crime, what I see when I look at that, knowing the sociological history of why that has come to be, you understand that the reason this is happening is because of the oppression that they've faced. Like, the black on black crime is literally a product of the economic policies that kept black people impoverished. You know, it's literally a product of the zoning policies that kept black and brown people zoned in one singular area of the city. You know, the reason black on black crime is even a thing is because of the centuries of oppression they've faced. You know what else you don't really hear a lot of reporting on? White on white crime. When was the last time you guys heard a news report talking about white on white crime? And yet, weirdly enough, most people who are committing crimes against white people are white. Crazy, right? And yet the go-to example for racists is, oh, but the underreported problem of black on black crime. Well, what about the underreported problem of white on white crime? Weirdly enough, racists never bring that one up. Crazy. It's almost like there might be some, I don't know, socioeconomic reasons behind that. I mean, this guy says he cares about socioeconomics so much, yet he's curiously not really applying socioeconomic lenses to the problems he's discussing. It's crazy. The best white on white crime is cop versus sovereign citizen. I'll agree with that. Yeah, that's true. Exactly. Conservatives only talk about crime done by black people and the overwhelming problem of black on black crime because they can use it as a racist dog whistle to bludgeon their voter base into being more racist. That's the goal when they use this type of rhetoric. The final boss is the sovereign cop citizen. They turn into a weird Voltron creature. Tricorn hat and badge. Yeah, you heard me fudge that word, Griffiths. I appreciate you. God damn it. Okay, you weren't the only one. God damn it. You guys are roasting me so hard, so I hope you guys can give some subs and donos to salve my burns. This guy is disgusting. Oh, everyone on the Patrick Bet David show is disgusting. This guy is particularly odious. But I have to give props to Bassem Youssef for actually entering this fray, knowing how awful these people were going to be.
Muslims are killing other Muslims. A lot of it is Islamists, fundamentalists. There's no marches, there's no protests. But Israel defends itself after October 7th, and I've seen you condemn Hamas for October 7th, but you've also sympathized with the Palestinians, as you should. But all of a sudden, that's
Riverboat Jack, voiceover specialist. Also, Dog Wiggle. God damn it!
It's the biggest story in the news. Why the distinguishment? Why can't Muslims
There's a difference between comparing conflicts, civil war, and then allowing another country to bomb you from the sky every single day for 100 days. You cannot compare the both. And actually, your tone of voice, when you say, oh, there is like black on black, Arabs killing each other.
Get 'em.
In your undertone is saying, yeah, they don't deserve to live, so let's Israel kill them.
0%.
This is exactly what you're saying. No, this is what you're saying.
That's not what I said.
No, this is what I'm saying.
I asked a question, you're reading into my tone.
You have absolutely no sympathy for the Palestinian killing because
that's not true at all. Don't put words.
Bassem Youssef heard the dog wiggle, guys. He heard the dog wiggle. Let's go.
No, seriously.
I 100% have sympathy.
Your entrance into this conversation is extremely racist because you say, well, Arabs have been killing each other. First of all, the Arabs have been killing each other. These are called either proxy wars or civil wars. But this is different because the America is not standing behind Saudi Arabia, voting every single UN resolution, like Israel. Israel is killing Palestinians, and nobody can do anything for them in the UN or the Security Council. Right? You can talk about how Saudis are killing the Houthis or the Yemenis or how Iran, but when they go to the Security Council, America doesn't use the veto. You know how many vetoes did America use since the inception of the Security Council? How many?
Tell me.
88. How many of those were they used in order to protect Israel from a veto?
0?
56.
Oh.
The superpower of the world.
No. Oh my god, his timing is incredible. Sorry, we're gonna watch that. No. For those of you who don't know, Israel is by far the most sanctioned country on the planet by the UN, or condemned country on the planet by the UN, specifically because it has spent the last 80 years deliberately violating international law. And America provides the diplomatic and honestly, the diplomatic and military backing that allows it to get away with that level of condemnation, despite everything else. I want to listen to this part again.
Since the inception of the Security Council? How many?
Tell me.
88. How many of those were they used in order to protect Israel from a veto?
0?
56.
Oh.
The superpower of the world over 50 years used more than 65% of its veto power to protect one country. You cannot compare both.
So why do you think that is? Why is Israel so aligned with Israel? I'm sorry, why is U.S. so aligned with Israel over Gaza?
I don't know. I mean, there's like a million.
Ask yourself.
There's a million. Why? So why?
I want to know.
Tell me, because they're white like them. Are they allowed to?
Who's white?
Well, I mean, a lot of Americans consider Israel is the white.
But you know
American.
for a fact.
I know.
Most Israelis are Sephardic and they're brown.
It's the perception.
So it's bullshit.
It's the perception.
Exactly.
It's a perception. So this is how Israel promotes itself. We are we are a democratic country. I have never seen a secular or democratic country that would actually give contraception shots to its own citizens, to their Ethiopian Jews, and make them not to reproduce. And until 2013, they have confessed doing that. They have been doing this for 10 years. That is not a democratic country.
Yep. It was revealed not that long ago that Israel had a state-mandated sterilization program for Ethiopian Jews, i.e., black Jews. Nope. Yeah, full on eugenics. Yes.
I have never heard a secular country, a democratic country, that would kidnap little kids from Yemeni Jews in 1950 and then take them away and then tell their parents that they die. And they did that in order to instill Semitic DNA in their population. That's why DNA testing is not allowed in Israel.
So are you pro-Islam? Are you anti-Israel or both?
I'm not pro anything. I'm pro humanity, man.
So am I.
It doesn't matter my religion is. I don't care actually, and I can give you 100 things I can tell you about Islamic countries that they do wrong. But what happens is right now is that the people who are bombing people only every single day, they are not Yemenis, they're not Houthis, they're not Saudis, they're Israelis. For 100 days, they have dropped almost 3 nuclear weapons on an open air prison, and all because of Hamas. Dude, if ISIS was already there, you have no excuse to.
I mean, it's not. This program, by the way, is not really in contention. The Israeli government health ministry admitted that it was giving Ethiopian Jews sterilization shots without their consent or knowledge. This is confirmed from Israeli news sources. You can find articles about it from like The Independent, The Guardian. That this is unfortunately real. And they were doing that up until 2013. Up until 2013, they were sterilizing Ethiopian Jews. Hey, Migs.
Killed 30,000 people.
You can't say words like nuclear weapons when it's not true, Bassem, and you know that.
The
You can't say-
equivalent of 3. No, I can't.
So now they're dropping nuclear weapons?
I
That's
said-
what
I
you're trying
said
to
like
sell
that,
me
no.
on?
What? Okay, wait.
Yemenis, they're not Houthis, they're not Saudis. They're Israelis. For 100 days, they have dropped almost 3 nuclear weapons on an open air prison, and all because of Hamas. Dude, if ISIS was already there, you have no excuse to kill 30,000 people.
You can't say words like nuclear weapons when it's not true, Bassem. And
The equivalent of 3 nuclear weapons. Like, again, you have state officials within Israel calling for the use of nuclear weapons just outright against Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. You have you know how many bombs have been dropped already, and it's more bombs than were dropped in the entire occupation of Iraq and Afghanistan. You have, and by the way, like, if you total up the amount of explosives that have been used, it is the equivalent of 3 nuclear bombs. Like, yeah, obviously Bassem Youssef wasn't saying that, like, oh, Israel has nuked the Gaza Strip 3 times. Obviously, that's not what he means. What he means is the equivalent of 3 nuclear bombs. I'm going to cut Chudman here some slack. I don't think he's smart enough to understand the comparison and probably takes it literally. That could very well be true. That could very well be true.
And you know that.
The
You can't say-
equivalent of 3. No, I can't.
Yeah,
I can't.
he
I can't.
just,
So
okay,
now
he
they're
just
dropping
clarified
nuclear
himself.
weapons?
I
That's
said-
what you're
I
trying
said
to
like
sell
that-
me
no,
on this one now?
I said like they're dropping the equivalent of 3 nuclear weapons.
So how many people have died in Gaza?
30,000 people.
Okay, according to Hamas. Obviously, UN gets their number from Hamas.
So
but
do you,
over the
do you-
last...
do you have a number that you trust?
No, I don't have any number that I trust, but I'll take your word for it. I don't think that sounds...
So how many? So how many?
But why?
So
but
how many?
hundreds of
so how many
thousands of
people-
Muslims have died in the Middle East.
How many people in Israel died in October 7th?
According to the numbers, 1,200. But
According to who?
But the numbers are still being counted.
According to whom?
According to the IDF.
Oh, but I don't trust the IDF.
Whether you do or you don't, those are the numbers that we're working with.
Well, I'm giving you
But my-
30,000 people died, and you said you don't trust them. So
I
who
said,
do we trust?
that's not what I said. I said according to Hamas.
Yeah, but
So
like
whether I believe the
when you
numbers-
say
Hey,
according to
peanuts.
Hamas, it's like it's the undertone that you don't believe the numbers.
With all due respect, you're missing my point.
Mm-hmm.
30,000, other than the Hamas fighters, because I will stand to kill these people. I hope 0 civilians die. But we
You
know what
hope,
happens.
But they
is-
die
Of course.
every day.
But let's go back to my initial
my-
question.
my-
No,
my
let me
question is- my
let me
question
ask
is like
this
if-
question, and then
how
you
do
can stick to my.
Again, like, this is what I said would happen at the very beginning, and it's just being repeated through conservative media, but they're going to kill, like, children, teachers, parents who have nothing to do with Hamas in the Gaza Strip, and by virtue of just being a Palestinian in the Gaza Strip, in the wrong place at the wrong time, they're going to be calling them members of Hamas. Every single one of the people who died, oddly enough, just mysteriously became card-carrying members of Hamas upon their death. It's wild. It's crazy.
How do you think how many?
But what
civilians
about
should
the
die
100? Zero.
Should we stop?
0.
But they're killing it.
Okay, but that's not my point, Bassem. My point is this: 30.
How many
Can I
kids
ask the
lost their
question?
limbs?
Can I ask the question, and then you can have the full response? Why is this issue at the forefront of the news when hundreds of thousands since 9/11, 5 million plus people in the Middle East have died? 5 million. 5 million versus 30,000.
Who killed most of those people? I wonder. Yeah, by the way, just I can't believe he's trying to make this comparison. 5 million people since 9/11. 9/11 was 23 years ago. That was 23 years ago. 30,000 people have died in like a matter of like 2 or 3 months in the Gaza Strip. Yeah, the United States was responsible for the vast majority of the people dying in the Middle East after 9/11, oddly enough.
Where are the marches? Where are the protests?
Well, you haven't been
But-
around.
We did anti-war marches and protests. You just didn't give a shit and pretended they weren't happening. The American left was protesting against the Iraq War for decades, literal decades.
You just haven't been around.
No, but I also read the newspapers. I see what's going on.
Because there
But we see-
has been marches against what happened in Yemen. There have been massive marches against what happened in Iraq.
If you
There
ask
have
the
been
average
marches- but the
person,
difference,
they couldn't tell you that there's a war in Yemen.
There is a difference.
But if you ask the average American, they know what is exactly going on in Israel.
Here's the thing. These mental gymnastics, where you want to divert people to other conflicts, these conflicts are proxy wars. These conflicts are civil war. Terrible, horrible civil war. There's been civil war happening in all kind of Asian and African country. The only difference is that is a foreign country invading another country, like exactly Russia invaded Ukraine, and then everybody is sitting there. All they ask is ceasefire, because one of the people in that conflict is a country that has been financed, given money by the U.S. It is considered as part of the free world because they are secular, because they are democratic, and they are committing war crimes every single day under the eyes of the United States, of the UN, and the Security Council.
So-
and that is why it is different.
Fair enough. So civil wars are totally okay. If it's a civil war, don't look. Those are people just
Did
doing
I
their
ever
thing.
say that civil war
No,
is okay?
but you basically equivalized. If a civil war, 5 million people die across the Middle East.
Yeah, it is terrible.
it's no big
because
deal.
usually the civil war is really supported by like two proxy people, and they're like killing each other, and it's terrible, and they're trying to do it. And in the same time, those people are not just like killing them; they're killing them, wanted to push them out openly, saying that we are going to push the Palestinians into the Sinai. Basically, that is my country. All right.
The only people shouting for the river to the sea are the Gazans.
well.
That's not true. From the river to the sea is literally in Likud's charter from like the 1980s.
Palestine will be free.
You know
So what does a free Palestine look like?
You know what's the difference between regular people in the street shouting from the river and the sea?
Mm-hmm.
These are regular people that are carrying flags in the street. You know what's happened on the other side? You have government official like Bitzail, like the Minister of Finance. You have Bin Ghafir, who is the Minister of National Security. Both of them, by the way, were arrested many times for acts of terrorism against their own country.
Wait,
But
these are Israeli prime ministers?
these the minister.
Not the prime ministers, ministers of certain.
Yeah.
So do you mean to tell me that Yahya Sinwar, who's the head of Hamas, or Mahmoud Abbas, who's the head of the PLO, they're not politically saying from the river to the sea? So if we're going to use that equivalence,
The people who are currently in power within Israel also believe in from the river to the sea rhetoric. If you want to bring this up, like, oh, well, Hamas is the only one saying from the river to the sea, well, you have to reckon with the fact that Likud, the biggest political bloc in Israel, also has that in their founding documents, specifically for ethnically cleansing Israel from the river to the sea for Jewish people. You also have to reckon with the fact that current sitting members of the Knesset, members of the Israeli government, are calling for like the extermination outright of Palestinians, are calling for Palestinians to be culled until there are a small enough number of them that can be taken by the international community. Like, they are literally calling for a cleansing from the river to the sea, which is different from like protesters on the street for a number of reasons. Number one being like, these are people who are actually have political power within Israel itself, and Israel is the occupying power of like places like the Gaza Strip and the West Bank and East Jerusalem. You know, this these points that they're making here
Hope this helps two chatters and contributes to horrors. Also, Bassem is a treasure to humanity.
Bassem Youssef is a treasure to humanity. And Abyssal, thank you for the 2 gifted tier 1 subs. I really, really appreciate it. Oh, you got winners, losers, and Shadamar. Nice. And let me update this. We are now at 11 subs out of 50. Once we hit 50, we will be doing some analog horror content. So I hope you guys enjoy that. But like, yeah, protesters aren't like calling for like the ethnic cleansing of Israel. They're calling for the end of the apartheid state. That's pretty obvious to me. Also, again, prior to Israel invading and killing 30,000 Palestinians in the Gaza Strip, most Palestinians were not supportive of Hamas. The only reason they're supportive of Hamas, and really from the polling data, the main reason they've only ever gravitated towards Hamas, is in instances where Israel starts inflicting indiscriminate violence against civilians. Punishing civilians for the actions of government officials. The collective punishment is what this is called, and that's actually in violation of international law. That it's actually a war crime to do, and yet they've been doing that since literally the beginning of this conflict. They continue to do it to this day. Israel is not the good guy in this situation by any stretch of the imagination. Even if you just want to like fight with like, oh, Hamas is saying from the river to the sea, though. Well, yeah, but we have neo-Nazis in America who call for like the destruction and death to all Jews in America, but you don't notice the U.S. government just indiscriminately bombing neighborhoods that are known to be like Nazi aligned. Weirdly enough, if you tried to employ this type of rhetoric that the PBD boys are trying to implement here, if you tried to use that in any other situation domestically in the United States, like it would lead to the most unhinged violence you've ever seen. The issue, I believe, with the river to the sea Palestine slogan is that it implies all of the area from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea, which are Israeli borders, should become Palestinian, which would necessitate Israel's extermination. Well, the other option is that you could have from the river to the sea, all of it being Israel. You could have a one-state solution. The issue is Israel doesn't want the one-state solution as it currently stands because it would mean enfranchising Palestinians to vote, which would eliminate the Jewish character of the nation. That's practically a quote. It's very lightly paraphrased. The issue is, and this was, by the way, one of the reasons why they did not annex the entire Gaza Strip last time around. They did not want to enfranchise Palestinians. So, if you wanted a one-state solution, that would be a way to do it, but it relies on every Palestinian getting the right to vote, which Israel doesn't want to do. So they've left them in this nebulous legal limbo for the entire time. It's not surprising that people who were kicked off of their land like a generation ago would adopt a phrase calling for a return to their ancestral land and a re-establishing of their rights and their freedoms. Like this isn't a surprising thing, and it's not that hard to parse either, unless one is being extremely intellectually dishonest. The same ones on the left that are saying Israel's bombing of Gaza is unfair collective punishment. Well, Israel's bombing of Gaza is unfair collective punishment. But Russia's invasion of Ukraine is not justified whatsoever. Like, the Russian invasion of Ukraine, absolutely unjustified, and all the justifications that Russia gives for it are either bullshit or like blood and soil, like Nazi adjacent propaganda points. you know? So like that's a bullshit argument. I'll agree with that. But when it comes to, if you're indiscriminately bombing healthcare facilities in the Gaza Strip and presenting no evidence to back it up that, like, Hamas was firing at you from those locations, if you are indiscriminately bombing the safe havens that you told people to go to, if you are cutting off food, water, electricity to an entire group of millions of people, most of whom are not Hamas, this is collective punishment. It is a war crime, actually. So both can be true. Israel can be doing war crimes in the Gaza Strip, can be pursuing a policy of ethnic cleansing in the Gaza Strip, and the Russian invasion of Ukraine can be horrifically wrong and not justifiable. Well, yeah, the issue is I don't care if those people agree with me or not. Like the argument that Israel's siege on Gaza is criminal is just that's factual. That's a factual point. This is like saying we should just summarily execute entire towns in the South in the America because they were like aligned with the Confederacy. Like, what? Like the U.S. Army should just roll into the South and like surround different towns and start summarily executing people suspected of being like anyone who has a Confederate flag gets the wall. Like this is like that level of insane propaganda. That would actually be bad. I think maybe invading the South and like just indiscriminately murdering civilians would actually be bad. Sherman's march to the sea was a bit different. Not free of problems, mind you, but a bit different. And I'm talking about doing it right now. Yeah, Sherman's March 2, Electric Boogaloo. Punky Gal, thank you for subscribing and for being subscribed for 33 months. I very much appreciate it. Yeah, exactly. From the river to the sea, Confederates shall no longer be.
You didn't even finish making me.
Go ahead.
So first of all, you are comparing a militant group, a terrorist group, with a secular democratic country. This secular democratic country that I'm telling you about, they have ministers coming up with a map of Greater Israel behind of them, and they openly talk about them, which is, by the way, if you don't know, the Greater Israel map is from the river to the Euphrates, including part of Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Lebanon.
Can we pull that up? In case any of you want to know what he is talking about, we covered a story not that long ago about the settler colonial movement in Israel and like the settlers that are at work in there. And Greater Israel is actually a location that spans about all of this. So, into Iraq, into Saudi Arabia, into Jordan, into Egypt, into Syria, encompassing all of Lebanon and Jordan. This is what the settler colonial movement in Israel is trying to go after. Like this is their end goal, right? So that's what he's talking about when he's talking about that.